cheers to another episode of the Weinnotes Podcast. I'm your guide, AJ Weinzettel, on this journey of stories showcasing the people behind the wonderful world of wine, where we dive into conversations ranging from terroir, viticulture, to favorite music, superpowers, and more. Please enjoy this episode of the Weinnotes Podcast. Tony, thank you so much for taking the time today to be on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, AJ. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of your wines for quite some time, and Andrew sent me an email saying, you should really get Tony on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, you're right, I should. So thank you again for doing this.
Oh, of course, it's my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Before we get started, do you mind if I pour us a little bit of a blind wine?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's a good time to taste some wine, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's after 12 o'clock.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yes. So I always tell everybody, there's zero pressure. You can say it's yummy. You can say it's good. It is 100% up to you how deep you want to dive into this. I always try to find some sort of connection. Mm-hmm. I think I did an okay job here. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But it was difficult at first. I was like, what should I do? Should I bring this one? No. I will say that I have a vertical of satire. Satyr, I'm sorry.
Sitar?
Sitar,
yeah,
Sitar,
yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
But then I always have like this little rule. I don't bring a wine that somebody made. And I'm like, because I thought that would be fun, because that's not a wine that you hear much about.
Well, the pretty small production too. I want to say it was 300 cases, something like that. So,
right.
And the wines are already, anywhere from, I guess, 12 to 16 years old or something now. So
exactly.
They've been around for a little while. So good job on obtaining those. Did you get those upon release?
No, I got those, I think, around 2021 at Alexana.
Okay.
And Jasmina, tasted had me taste the vertical, and it was like, hey, this is possible. Do you want to buy it? And I'm like, yes, please.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, that should be a fun tasting whenever you decide to get after it.
Yes, most definitely.
But this seems like a wine that's it's been around for a little bit.
So I promise this is not a wine that you made. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's a pretty nice little staple in the Oregon community of what it is, and
yeah, well, it's cool. I mean, wine's always fascinating to me because essentially it always takes you on a journey. Sometimes the journeys are wonderful and exciting, and sometimes not so much. But but the wine's pretty much going to tell its life story in the glass. At any moment in time that the wine gets opened up. So I think it's kind of cool. It's one of the things that's attracted me to wine.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And
yeah, I think we'll just let it sit here and open up for a bit. How about that?
No, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm curious, kind of starting off in the immediate, the 2024 vintage. It kind of started to kind of look like a little bit like last year, a lot of heat coming up, around mid-May, for bud break. And then, flowering kind of started happening, and then it got cold. And there was some hail in the Amity Hills over the weekend.
Yeah.
And some rain. And what are your impressions so far of 2024?
Yeah, I think, I see where you're coming from as far as comparison with 24 to 2023. I would say one of the stark contrasts for me is that last year when we got into May, I mean, May was to me kind of like July. I mean, so we got into some pretty warm weather consistently, and it was kind of important at that point in time because we were pretty late as far as bud break was concerned, and so we had a much cooler period leading up to that nice May weather, and that wound up being very important for us. And so we went from in a period of about 30 or 40 days, from being about 3.5 weeks behind to being actually on track, if not a little bit ahead. And I've never experienced that before. And I think it certainly, left its mark on the vintage. Whereas this year, I mean, things were kind of happening a little bit more normally, I guess, is the term I would use. So we were, seeing some, I would say, signs of bud break, at a more normal time. And then we got, a couple of nice little stints of, I'd say, 75, 80 degree weather in May. But then to your point, we kind of returned to cooler conditions. Excuse me. But I think that that May timeframe is very important for us here. And so we need at least a shot or two of nice weather to kind of get the motor revved up, if you will, in the grapevines. And so we're seeing that. So even when we got cooler, things were progressing. And now with this week, we're probably in most sites, probably midway through bloom. So let's say it's been going on for about 10 days now. And I think with this next, week or so, we'll push through the remainder of bloom, in this probably 5 to 7 day window where we're going to have some nice weather. So that's good. I mean, I'm always, I guess, happy to be through bloom and happier when it's not really protracted. And, when we have kind of a start and then it languishes and then we get a bunch of crummy weather and then we sort of circuitously make our way through that bloom period, it winds up leading to a lot of variability in the vineyards. So it's a little bit hard to navigate. And, I always say that, the grapes don't get any riper once they get picked, so it's kind of a big decision as to when to actually harvest the grapes. But when you have a gradient or range of ripening within a cluster or within a vineyard or within a block, that just adds to the complexity a little bit. So it makes the decision, you have to be more thoughtful, I think, about it. And for me, I like to observe a lot of factors with regards to the season to kind of help me orient myself as to where we are and how we're tracking. So all of that sort of data accumulation for me is happening throughout the entire growing season up until you get to game time, which is, pulling the trigger on picking some grapes.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I always find it interesting and I follow it from a very, weekend warrior, armchair quarterback kind of standpoint, just looking at it from a very amateur viewpoint. And I always find it interesting.
Well, I think most people who, when they first come to the whole topic of wine, oftentimes people will find certain aspects of it fascinating, but it's hard to, I think, really grasp how important, all these details really are to ultimately creating the complete picture, or kind of the signature as to what this vintage is going to be like. And I can share with you without hesitation that I've never seen two vintages that were alike. And I mean, but with that said, there's aspects or parts of vintages that are reminiscent of other vintages. So they're almost like a quilt or a patchwork. And how it ultimately comes together to me is always fascinating, because every year is truly different. And particularly that's the case here in the Willamette Valley, where the concept of vintage is alive and well, I will tell you. And, we can see dramatically different growing conditions from one year to the next. And that's always very humbling and I guess demands one's full attention.
Yes, most definitely. I completely agree. Now, to go back in time,
In my time machine? Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
in
That sounds
your time
good.
machine.
I misplaced it, so if you find it, let me know.
I think it went down the road like doing 88 miles an hour.
For it. It sounds good.
Looking back at your time at the University of Wisconsin, you were working hospitality and you worked with a chef that didn't really rely on recipes.
That's absolutely correct, yes.
Do you think that you would have gotten into wine if you weren't in that like hospitality type environment?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I don't know that the experience, I mean, my first job, again, that you're referencing, I was 16 years old at the time, and my brother, who's 3 years my senior, or surviving brother, I should say, he was already working in restaurants and cooking, and so I got a job as a dishwasher, and ultimately, within, probably 6 months or so, was prep cooking and started cooking and learned from a said chef. It was only when I got into the wine business, or I should say wine production, years later, that I realized, and I had kind of an aha moment at, probably 3 to 5 years into it or so, where I was like, holy crap, this is, essentially the same skill set for cooking is what I'm applying towards wine. So I guess I would actually state it such that it was enormously beneficial for me, and that skill set was absolutely parallel to the skill set that we employ to make wine, at least the way we make wine here, and the way that I made wine for the majority of my time being in this business. As far as getting into it, I think it probably still would have gone down that path, but yeah, it's a great question. I don't know exactly, but I don't know that it would have precluded me from doing it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. You just never know what's going to happen when you're in that time machine and going back and.
Yeah, exactly. So can we dial in a particular day and time? Is that?
I'm trying. I'm working on that. I haven't gotten there yet.
I think you're going to have some takers if that's the case.
I might have to keep that a secret.
Yeah.
Yes. And then kind of moving on from that, post-college life, you decided to move to Dayton, Washington. It was a super small town. Why? Just kind of why go to a super crazy small town?
Yeah, well, that's where the job was. And, let's just to put it into context, then I won't be too specific about dates, but it was during a period of time when the economy was not doing that great. And I was just coming out of college, and I had started out in undergraduate, actually going back a year prior, I didn't meet when I was in high school with my guidance counselor until, probably 2 months before graduation. And I had pretty good grades. And I remember that meeting because I sat down with this person and it's like, oh, wow, you have really good grades and, you could be a doctor or a lawyer. And it's like, oh, yeah, doctor, lawyer, okay. Because to that point in time, I hadn't thought at all about what I was going to do.
Right.
I knew that going to college was something that was smart, although I have to admit I wasn't, completely jonesing to go to college. But it's like, yeah, okay, I should probably do this. So I started out in pre-med and very quickly realized that I didn't really care for the people that I was in these undergraduate classes with. I did some honors courses and such, and they were not my people, shall we say. And so that quickly changed my mind, coupled with the fact that it required a much longer commitment of time and grades. And I would also say I don't care for the sight of blood, so all those things were sort of working against me. So I would say within the first year or so, I switched to medical microbiology, or med micro, and then I took a job in a lab because for me it was always important to do the work. That's just the way that I'm wired. So internships and practical work experience have always been very important for me to make a decision, because I was never blessed with having clarity with regards to what was my magical role in life, shall we say.
Yeah.
And so but again, with the med micro, I hated lab work, and it was just like very quickly, I was like, yeah, this isn't for me either. And so ultimately, I wound up getting a general microbiology degree. And so at that point in time, the job choices were, they lumped microbiology in with food science and food technology. And so that means working for a food company, where the career path or career tracks. And so I wound up applying, and again, I took every interview that I could possibly get, which were not that many, for my discipline, and ultimately got a couple of second interviews. And the one that offered me the job was the food plant was in Dayton, Washington. So that's how I came there. But it was, again, referencing your time machine, it was a time warp moving from Madison, Wisconsin population, 300,000 probably when school's in session, to Dayton, Washington population like 1,200 people or something in the middle of flipping nowhere. And so, yeah, I sort of struggled with that for sure. But interestingly, I've had many jobs as in high school and into college. And one of my jobs was also working at a retail shop that specialized in fine wine. And I had actually been exposed to and tried some wine from Washington, which at the time was a pretty small, had a small footprint. Not many people knew of it, but I had actually tried wine from Washington. So that when I came out and took the job in Dayton, I was with the weekends, I was like bored out of my mind. So I found myself going to wineries as kind of a social outlet, and got to meet some people in the industry. And so that kind of primed the pump for me that ultimately, I would say, influenced me to get involved a few years later.
Very nice.
Yeah. So that definitely was an influence. Certainly the cooking, part of it was, again, very much a discovery once I started making wine, and then realizing the fashion in which I make wine, which is very much, much more, I guess, thoughtful, but not formulaic at all. So very much, and that I would say, an approach to winemaking that's adaptive. I can't really emphasize that enough, especially now, fast forwarding, a few decades. And realizing that the variables under which, the growing conditions, shall we say, they change so dramatically from year to year. I feel like adaptability is even more important now than it even was when I first got into the industry.
I completely agree on every single level. One of the things that you just said that I relate to quite a bit is I have to dive into something to figure out, if I want to do it. And there's people that I work with, they're like, I can see 5 years out and what I'm going to be doing in 5 years. And I'm like, how in the heck do you do that?
I'm envious of people that can do that. I've just never been blessed with that superpower, shall we say.
Yeah, no, neither have I.
Yeah, but it's cool if you can do that. But I would say I've also been extremely fortunate that, I kind of forged ahead, particularly when it came to the wine business. My first wine job, I was able to obtain because of my microbiology degree, because I actually worked at a winery that was looking for a microbiologist. And again, I didn't want to do that work. I knew that it was not for me, but I wanted to work at a winery. And so I was able to get my foot in the door, which was my whole, grand scheme, I guess. And then I did the microbiology part of it for a few months, and then hated it, and then was able to find my way into the lab. And so I did that for another 3 months, and then I convinced the cellar master to give me a position as an intern so I could be a junior winemaker. And that's when it all sort of, the light switch flipped on for me, for sure. Because it's like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, no, and continue to go, speed forward several years into the future. You're at IPNC and having a conversation with an Italian winemaker.
Oh yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
And
Luigi, yes.
Yes, I was curious, what region of Italy was he from?
So it's on the Adriatic. I don't know that I recall the exact name, but it's essentially proximity-wise. His region starts again on the on the west coast of the Adriatic, and probably, again, as a landmark, maybe about an hour and a half or 2 hours south of Venice. So kind of like right in that area. Okay. And the winery is named Fattoria Mancini, and his name is Luigi Mancini. So his family, I think, started it. But I've since looked at his website, and it's absolutely stunning. Just kind of these chiseled cliffs, like sheer cliffs going into the Adria. I mean, it's like absolutely spectacular.
Wow.
But I've never been, but it's on my bucket list for sure.
Yeah, you definitely have to go.
Yeah.
And diving in a little bit to that conversation, you all were talking about the process to making white Pinot Noir.
Well, yeah, I mean, to step back a little bit, so he was representing his winery as a featured winery at the IPNC, and I was there also representing a winery at the IPNC, Oregon winery, and so that's how we crossed paths. And he was on my bus to go out to the offsite location. For those of you who are familiar with the IPNC, and that's an element. One of the days involves that, where you have a seminar and a luncheon out at a vineyard location. And so that's where I first started chatting him up, and we kept crossing paths. But he was full of all kinds of ideas, And so the white Pinot Noir idea didn't really come up until probably day 3 or so, and. It was not a wine that he had brought with him. It was just sort of a concept, something that he shared with me. And as he was describing this white wine made from Pinot Noir, I have to admit, I was just like, this again, light bulb went on for me. It's like, holy crap! It's like, why wouldn't you do that? I mean,
right.
Pinot Noir has been being made into white wine for centuries, in the form of champagne, sort of base wines for that, and Pinot Noir being, I would say probably more heavily relied upon for champagne-based wines than even Chardonnay. And it was just like, sounded cool. So to me, in my mind, it's like, well, this is Pinot Noir as a white wine, how it would manifest itself if it was allowed to, grow up, right? So come to full maturity. And that's really how it resonated in my mind. And so he was there at the time. It's like, do you care if I try and make this wine? That sounds really cool. He's like, it's like, sure, I didn't come up with the idea. It's like, It's been in our region for, a few decades, and it was, as he described it, was a bit of an audible, because I think they were shackled with historically not the best clones of Pinot Noir in his region, and he had described to me, these just monster clusters that were formed, and having to go through and cut them in half and take the wings off and do like an Edward Scissorhand type of adjustment in the vineyard to try and salvage something. And so the white wine, I think, again, was kind of an audible to be able to, in some years, make something that that would be of high demand. And so yeah, that's where the idea of it came from. And that very first year, that was in 2004, I set out to and successfully made my first white Pinot Noir. So it's my 20th anniversary. So
that sounds amazing. To me, it sounds like a perfect segue to try your white Pinot Noir.
Ah, yes, sure. Yes. Let's do it.
Your white Pinot Noir is called the Pretender.
Yes, and this is from the 2021 vintage. And the first vintage of Pretender that I made under the Tendril label was back in 2013. But as I mentioned, my first white Pinot Noir that I made was in 2004.
I have to say, I tried this for the very first time in 2020, and I was blown away.
Well, that brings me joy or happiness to hear you say that. Yeah. And it's been a really wonderful addition into our lineup and a wine to be associated with. I can tell you that back in the early days, back in the 2004, 2005, 2006 timeframe, I don't recall other people making barrel fermented versions of white Pinot Noir, although some certainly have been done before and since. But it was an unusual discovery wine for folks, and that was always something that to me was very attractive. about having this offering in the lineup, because from my vantage point, having people come in, daily, weekly, monthly, visiting the region, there aren't a whole lot of new things to be discovered. I mean, in the wine world, most everything's been done before, and a lot of it's been, it gets recycled, and it's like new to you kind of concept. And white Pinot Noir, I'd say, kind of fit in that category. But for many years, very few people made it or had interest in it. But for me, it became sort of a signature item in our lineup, and people would come here specifically to try the white Pinot Noir. And I guess the first thing to note here, AJ, is that lo and behold, it's white. So, which I would say, based on what I've seen, over the last 5 years or so, a lot of them seem to have a little bit of pink color to them, which, whatever. I mean, I'm not the white Pinot Noir police, so, but at the same time, it's an important part of our wine to actually have it be a white wine, as I found that puts the wine in a better position for ageability. So it can still be an age-worthy wine, and with the color. The pink color in it definitely shortens the window for enjoying this wine, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's been a little bit since I've had this, and I almost wanted to say I had like tones of like vanilla or whatever at first. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I do a really horrible job of describing what I actually taste.
I think you're underselling your skill set, AJ. But I definitely can see that. I mean, the coolest thing about this for me is that it's showcasing something that's not only normal or common, which is Pinot Noir in the Willamette Valley, but it's showcasing it in a different way. And so you're showing a side of this grape variety that a lot of people haven't experienced before. And again, it's a completely different wine than wine made from Pinot Noir using the skins and the seeds and vinified into a red wine. And I just think that's like super cool to be able to extend the range, if you will, in the lineup. It's very important. And so for Tendril, for example, over probably a 7 or 8 year period of time when we first got started, I very slowly added wines to the lineup. I started with a single wine, and then in year 2 added both the extrovert. Started with the extrovert, and then in 2009 added the tightrope. So we had 2 Pinot Noirs in the lineup, and slowly added to that, so that now we've created this very broad range of flavors and textures that represent Pinot Noir in the Willamette Valley, according to Tendril. And I think that's really cool to kind of showcase those things in a different way. And the white Pinot Noir, very importantly, stands apart as a very different offering, but it adds range and bandwidth to the lineup that I think is really important for us.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's and then just kind of revisiting a little bit. I mean, the acidity level on that is absolutely amazing. Showing age-worthy potential, but then also that finish. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just kind of sitting here counting, and I just kind of lost count because I was trying to pay attention. It just keeps going.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I would describe those for those listening that haven't tried a white Pinot Noir. First of all, I would say, try some white Pinot Noir. There's a lot more of them showing up these days, which is cool. And there's a range of styles out there as well. This is barrel fermented, but very importantly, there's no new barrels in this whatsoever. And I would say for all of our white wines, we're using anywhere from 0% new to maybe, at the most 10 or 15%. So very much on the low side of the new oak percentage. But 2 of the white wines that we make for Tendril, the Pretender in this glass and then the XL Chardonnay, neither one of them have any new oak in them. And something about that really resonates for me in my core values of appreciating wine, because I feel like oak has just kind of become the black pepper mill, if you will, in the wine world, where it shows up at the table and we're going to say, yes, please.
Right.
But at the same time, you can go too far and it can overwhelm or dominate a wine. And new oak to me falls in that category. And there's kind of an interesting movement right now in the Chardonnay world here in the Willamette, for people to be picking less ripe, but they're backfilling in texturally what's not there with new oak. And so the new oak percentages are going up and up and up.
Right.
And, I find that kind of a curious evolution. We're not going down that path here, but a number of folks seem to be enamored of that style.
Yeah, and I really appreciate not having new oak because it actually shows like what's there with the wine. Mm-hmm. And when you get that neutral oak kind of brought in, it's giving it a representation of the actual wine itself instead of, like you're saying, this add more pepper kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, don't get me wrong, I love oak. I love new oak. In our lineup for Tendril, so I don't know if we catch it on camera, but anyhow, our 8 offerings in the lineup, the range as far as new oak percentage, it ranges from 0% to 100%. So we pretty much have all the bases covered, right? So yes. and the 100% is only with a single wine that we do called C-Note. But using oak as a winemaking input to be able to differentiate the lineup has been kind of a fun experience for me to really kind of investigate it more fully. But with the white wines, with that said, it seems like every year we're backing off on what little bit we're using for white wines and going less as opposed to more. So yeah. and going counterstream of maybe that which is most popular. Also sort of resonates with me. I kind of like that. I like it being a little bit contrary, I guess, at times, right. As long as, our customers are finding value and appreciating the wines.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And so in 2008, you started Tendril, mm-hmm. but you're out there all over the place. You do, consulting at least for Open Claim, Saffron Fields, and many others. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely, when I heard that you made the wine for the sitar that we were talking about earlier, I was like, of course. It's like almost like you have like little footprints just all throughout the community.
Yeah, to be completely frank, it was my hope when I left Domaine Serene and started my own business to launch my own wine brand, which ultimately became Tendril, and then one was not enough, so then we started Child's Play back in 2014. To complementary brands, which I've been very happy to see how that's sort of come to fruition. But I wanted to also, knowing that that these brands were going to be very small, there's economies of scale and some efficiencies, right? And so we've been incredibly fortunate for the whole time we've been doing this for Tendril, that we've had our own winery that we've been able to lease and now ultimately own here at our location in downtown Carlton. But at the same time, we couldn't be here unless we had our client business, which represents from a volume standpoint, probably about 65 or 70% of the wine that we make here is for our small handful of clients for whom we make wine. And we're making wine for 7 or 8 folks now. Most are pretty small, some are still incubating. But it's also adds to the efficiency, and the economics of it are very important to be able to be here, because wineries are expensive, people are expensive, and so we can have a small crew and control our own destiny from a winery location standpoint. But also it brings in more experience to us. So every year, we're bringing in a number of sites that are exclusively for a particular client or a couple of clients, and that adds to our just overall experience and knowledge every year. And vintage occurs once a year, so we got one shot at it, one bite at the apple, so to speak, and so every year is this learning curve, and so it's very important. But I would also add that it's from the start, I was very committed to making sure that all the wines we were making here would have their own unique personalities. And so, we're not a McWinery making McWine for a bunch of McClients, No. That happens, and again, not taking a swing at anybody that does it, but that's just not what we're doing here. And so it was of critical importance for me for any offerings that we're doing to be distinctly different one from the next, or in between clients. And that's been reinforced hearing back from our clients. And sometimes, in rare occasions, there'll be vineyard sites that we're sharing with our clients. Saffron Fields, for example, I got the first fruit off of that vineyard back in 2009. And then in 2010, we started making a small amount of wine for Saffron. So that's always been a shared vineyard site between the two of us.
Right.
And, that's been shared back, with me by Saffron, that they appreciate the fact that our wines, when we do a Saffron Fields single vineyard, for example, it tastes very different than theirs. And that's warms my heart because we're working diligently to make sure that's the case. So that's very important. And to me, sustainability is more than just a buzz term. It's actually it's a sort of a way of life here. And I want our relationships to continue on for many years with all of our clients. And we're extremely fortunate that we've got a bunch of good folks that we're working with.
Yeah, very much so. And I think it kind of plays back on, that chef that you were, working with, at your first job. I mean, he was making recipes or making food without recipes.
Yes.
And to me, that completely falls within the ethos of what you're accomplishing.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, it worked well for me. That overall mindset, getting back to your earlier question about, would I have gotten into wine without that experience? The more I think about it, perhaps not. I wouldn't have had that skill honed as far as observing, paying attention, not going down kind of the more recipe-based approach to making wine. As it pertains to winemaking, particularly in a region like the Willamette Valley, I feel like there's some inherent risks to following the same pattern every year as far as how you're approaching making wine. And it may work out great for a vintage or two, but chances are it's not going to work out great for every vintage if you're making the same decisions with regards to some of the parameters for making wine.
I completely agree. Should we dive into one of your other wines?
Sure, sounds good. Well, I really like trying the Chardonnay after the white Pinot. Well, actually, I usually like to try the white Pinot Noir after, but I should say contrasting these two wines, because to me, this is my favorite part in our tasting. A number of years ago, I went to a very high-profile Burgundy tasting for Burgundy producer who did a tasting, and they tasted the red wines first, so the Pinot Noirs first, and then ultimately finished with the Chardonnay, which happened to be Montrachet, which doesn't suck, by the way. That just kind of blew my mind tasting the wine, how much more I got from the white wine tasting it later in the actual tasting experience. So we do our tastings that way here to this day at Tendril, where it's reverse order. So we're doing the red wines first and then finishing up with the whites. But tasting the Chardonnay and the white Pinot Noir next to each other, I love in our tasting because they're so different. They show their varietal identity, I guess, very, very strongly. And they couldn't be more different from each other based on what they're delivering texturally and aromatically. And I just really love that, because when I think about it, it seems to me it's pretty rare to try a couple of white wines that can be 180 degrees apart from each other sequentially in a tasting.
Yeah,
I think these two fit that bill. So 2019 Enchanter Chardonnay.
Very nice, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And this is the one white wine that I referred to that has a little bit of new oak, maybe 15%, 18%, something like that. Just enough to add some complexity to the wine and a little bit of that influence, but it's very much as an accent as opposed to kind of a lead with. But you get that really juicy acidity and vibrancy to it, where I think, AJ, you were mentioning earlier with the white Pinot Noir with the Pretender, how just incredibly textural. I mean, it's very viscous and has a real roundness to it. So it's Pinot Noir without the tannins really showing up and the acidity being very balanced as well. So to me, this just screams Chardonnay. This is what Chardonnay does here. You know,
I completely agree. To me, this is like very tight and racy, right there on the mid palate. But again, you get that long lingering, and just it comes in waves. And I love how it just keeps coming and going and coming and going. It's really, really delightful.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite ways to describe the experience that we're hoping for with our wines when we have guests that come and we'll be doing a tasting here at the winery. To me, truly great wines, they share a characteristic, which is it's almost like this wave response, or wave effect, where as you taste the wine, it's like the wave, essentially presenting itself, and then there's this very long sort of gradual recession as you're tasting the wine, which has to do with the length and persistence on the palate. But you want that very sort of fluid, pun intended, interaction with a really great wine, and it really manifests itself as almost like a seamlessness, right? So, and what I try and avoid with the wines that we're making is, these spikes, where the tannins will show up, where the acidity is, really sharp, or the alcohol overwhelms. And so, having these wines show great balance and, great sort of seamlessness is really, really important to our wine style.
I agree. And again, I'm a huge fanboy, so I'm just going to continue to say how.
That's why we're doing this, man, right?
Yes.
Thank you for your support, for sure.
Yes, of course. Talking about just finding little lingering parts of yourself all throughout the valley. Mm-hmm. A story to share with you. Last year, I was doing my research for a podcast interview for Eric Berg. And, it was...
Or as he's known to his friends, Red.
Red?
Yes. Yeah.
Now this...
You can call him Red, yeah. I think you can ask him about it. I think it's for Eric the Red, but...
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I know that he got teased for, his modeling career a little bit.
He was a hand model, wasn't he? No, I'm just kidding.
But, I mean, so you've had some influence, on Eric's career, and you also had, influence on Michael Undine's career. Mm-hmm. And it's just...
Rob Fullen's another one. He's down in the southern part of the state. Manning the ship down there. There's a number of folks. And, it's probably one of the most rewarding aspects of, hanging around for a while, I guess,
Yeah. It's just amazing to see.
Akin to the coaching tree, right? So that's kind of fits into that category. So that's part of my coaching tree, I guess. So, which, it's great. I mean, you want to see folks that worked with you have enormous success. I mean, that's nothing more rewarding than that.
Of course, and. Just for me, Michael Undine, I love his wine and what he's doing with sparkling and, all of his other stuff. I almost brought his Cab Franc.
Oh.
And because I know that you like things that are a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Is it grown here in the valley?
No, I think it's down south, I believe.
Because I was just earlier today speaking with a new client, and they have Cab Franc planted in their Eagle Hills vineyard. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. I think the initial thought is to do a rosé, but we'll see. As the climate continues to evolve, shall we say, there may be some opportunities depending on the year.
Yeah, there might be. Hopefully it ripens enough so it's not a rosé.
Yeah,
that would be.
Well, I think it could make a pretty special rosé too. Honestly, doing something else. Well, I think it's actually kind of a neat idea, as again keeping it wide open, but. Again, the idea of presenting something unexpected, whether it's directly from our tasting room here or through one of my clients, I think that's really cool because I feel like more and more people are searching for, new and different, and
Right.
or a different riff on maybe something that's tried and true.
Right.
I think are all in the conversation. People are, looking for just, more and different experiences, I guess.
I completely agree. It's because, just wine in general it's just this huge little rabbit hole. And once you start going down, you just want to continue and go and go and go. So when you find something a little bit different, it's like, ooh, I found a nice little gemstone.
It's the question I seem to be getting asked most frequently now. It's like, what's, by our customers and friends alike, but, people are just looking for always, it's like, so what's new? What's they
Right.
want the insider trading on what's new and different.
Well, and I think going back to our conversation we had back in 2020, you like to push the bounds a little bit, and you like to try new things, and you get a little bored, and you're like, ooh, I want to do this, ooh, I want to do that. What's on the horizon for you that's like pushing the boundaries?
Good question. As I just referenced, some of it will not be directly through our label, but there certainly are some things. There's an evolution. I appreciate you mentioning the envelope pushing. I named my vineyard Maverick. That's not coincidental. And the way that we set it up, from even the selections of Pinot Noir that we chose, give it a very different signature. And, I kind of, something about that is appealing to me to be, like I said, if everybody else is going right, I'm happy to go left. As long as, again, we're getting the results in the bottle that is, ultimately something interesting and resonates with people, but
Right.
Not to just do it, but to do it because it's has the potential to come across as interesting and maybe surprising. And I just really, I love that part of it. And like I said, the longest standing example of that in our lineup, it would be the white Pinot Noir, because it's every day we're still surprising people when they come here and just go, holy cow, I've never, and rare is the time that people walk away from their tasting here without purchasing some of that wine, because they haven't experienced anything quite like it before. And
Right.
I love that part of it because, I seek it out in all aspects of my life. I just think that that's cool. But sorry, I lost track of your question.
No, it's just like, what are you
new
working
on the
on?
horizon. So one of the things I think, I think it will be happening. Well, it will be happening. We're investigating it, but is in the Child's Play lineup. We're currently doing a Malbec, and I'm not quite sure if we're going to move forward with that. Although, with that said, we're finally starting to sell a bit more of it. But Malbec is unfortunately, it's shaded a little bit by the primary association with that grape variety, which is Argentinian Malbec. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of it out there of a particular style, but there's also a lot of people that don't care for what they've tasted for Malbec, so it's a bit of an uphill battle. So that quote unquote big red, we might switch out of our lineup, and right now we're investigating possibly adding Gamay Noir into the lineup, which isn't that unusual for this region, but we've not done it before. So I think that would be kind of cool. I've done a little beta testing with regards to what's out there and the level of interest. So that's something that we're investigating, and also keeping it closer to home. The Malbec's coming from a really wonderful vineyard site in eastern Washington, but the logistics of it, particularly in the middle of harvest, to get a small quantity of a what's considered to be an unusual grape variety, is challenging. And so Gamay we can grow here, so that sounds kind of cool to me. But I don't know. Now you're mentioning Cab Franc, it's like kind of rattling around my brain. Just let it roll around for a while. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, that is very cool.
But also, I think we're on the prowl right now, or have interest. So in our Pinot Noir lineup, we do 5 different offerings in a given year. 4 of which have their own proprietary names, so they're unique to our winery, and which I think is really important. But we also include a rotational single vineyard wine, a single vineyard Pinot Noir. And what I mean by rotational is that all of the sites that we're working with for Tendril in a given year have an opportunity to compete for that slot. And so what we consider to be the most interesting, the most compelling expression in a given year is the one that sort of wins, if you will, the single vineyard slot. And again, we're only making about 100 cases of it, so very small quantities. So I'd like to find a Chardonnay that does the same thing. So in the Chardonnay lineup, to actually have a single vineyard Chard, and so I think we're getting closer to that manifesting itself. So, but I try and exert patience, which I'm not a patient person by nature, so that's kind of hard to do. But we have manifested it with the Tendril lineup, as we both barrel age and bottle age for quite a bit longer than most wineries do, and it's really with the mindset of making sure that when a wine gets released from us, that it's at least on the front end of what I refer to as its drinkability curve. So the wine's ready to go, and you'll get full enjoyment if you drink the wine tonight. And in the case of, most of our wines, I try and build in an 8 to 10 year window of enjoyment, so that, you're not going to miss the boat. And people seem to stress out. That's certainly one of the most frequently asked questions that I get is like, when should I drink this wine? Like, there's a magical date that everything comes together, and it's just that's the perfect day. It's not like a solar eclipse, it's like I want to provide a broad window, because it also serves us well, to be honest with you. Rare is the time that I'll be there when that cork gets pulled, that I can lobby with said customer as to how great that wine is. It needs to stand on its own and show everything that we've very patiently, put into that wine to make sure that it's perfect. And by taking on the front end of that aging responsibility, shall we say, to me is the least that I could do. And it serves us well, because again, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to wineries where, I'm tasting some very young wine. It's like, well, yeah, it'll be better in 3 to 5 years. So essentially being sent home with a homework assignment, I decided early on I didn't want to do that to my customers. So I'll take on that assignment for you and make sure that whenever you decide to open up that or pop that cork, you're going to get full enjoyment.
Yeah, and it's hard to have that patience when you have, like right now, 2022s are coming out quite a bit. Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And
I'm pouring mostly 19s, yeah.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the things I really do appreciate about what you do. I mean, you hold them back, and it shows.
Well, and in the case of the Chardonnay too, I mean, it's one of the things I enjoy about it. I think it's still really fresh, and I mean, it's a 5-year-old Chardonnay, but it's just at this beautiful point of drinkability that, again, I think Chardonnay more than Pinot Noir at times really benefits from that ability to kind of come together and, for texturally for things to marry up and present in a really attractive fashion. And, we're all about that. With that said, we will be moving ahead of vintage, as we took a pass on 2020. So that was honestly a decision that was made before, any of the harvest challenges presented themselves. There was this thing, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's called COVID. And so early on in those dark days, shall we say, was pretty concerned about everything and felt like we, had sufficient inventory. So we were really going to dial things back, and then ultimately dialed them all the way back. So that will not be a vintage you'll find from Tendril.
Well, I can very much appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, it kind of ultimately worked out, I guess. But so.
Yes. Shall we try another one of your wines?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
We try them all. Sure. So, since we're going in proper order as opposed to reverse order, so next up we've got the 2019 Extrovert. And so this is an offering in our lineup that again, holds a special place for me, as this is where it all began for Tendril back in 2008. So that was our first vintage. Although I will say that the 8 through 2012 did not say extrovert, even though that was the blend. It didn't have that proprietary name. So that started with the 13 vintage. But this in our lineup is kind of where things begin as far as a new vintage. This is the first Pinot Noir that we release in a given new release cycle for us. And the extrovert, it's an impeccably well-balanced wine. It really shows, I think, a very good balance between the fruit concentration, the floral notes. There's a modest amount of new oak that's part of this, but it's very fresh and vibrant, very extroverted, if you will. And so I seek out names that I guess people can remember and hopefully resonate. Extrovert is kind of a weird one, because is that really a compliment, or is that? And so I think it depends on what you are yourself. If you happen to be an extrovert or an introvert. I will tell you that I had an opportunity at the time, although I did not have the wine, to have trademarked introvert, which since has been trademarked by someone else, and actually, I would say the opportunity was spoiled. But years later, I realized that with the Chardonnay that we just had tried, the Enchanter Chardonnay, had that name been available, I would have named the Chardonnay the Introvert. So I think that would have been a nice play on those two.
It would have been.
But that opportunity kind of went away. So, but names are tough. They're hard to come up with. I would say even tougher now than when we first started, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And so they get tougher and tougher every day, it seems like, especially if you want to trademark them. But this extrovert, it really represents, I think, very well as, let's say, the first contact in our lineup for folks. So it's the one that's priced the most affordably, and it really represents, I think, what is very important to me for Pinot Noir, which is, kind of this combination between fruit and floral, and importantly, very textural. So it has, I'd say the tannins, being that it's a 5-year-old wine, are fairly refined and silky and long on the finish. This is almost exclusively without whole cluster influence, and we use that particular winemaking input as a tool to differentiate our lineup. The next wine we'll try is the Tightrope, where that typically has anywhere from 30 to maybe 40% whole cluster influence to it, and the C note is 100%. And so I love being able to use winemaking techniques to differentiate or extend the range in our lineup.
And talking about whole cluster, I love the story of, at first you're like, no whole cluster. Why would you put that in the wine? What kind of made you change your mind a little bit on that?
I mean, again, taking a very sensorial approach to making wine. In the case of whole cluster, I first dabbled, shall I say, back in the in the late 90s into the early 2000s, but dabbling for me was probably doing 10 to 15% whole cluster in one fermenter and then doing none in another, and I would make these wines and it would be inconclusive. We would taste the wines together as a crew, and I mean, some people liked it more or less, but there wasn't any consensus. And importantly, I wasn't like seeing the magic that would manifest itself in really well-made, higher percentage whole cluster wines. And Steve Dorner is a friend and definitely an influence, and has been doing whole cluster for the majority of his winemaking career in Pinot Noir. And some of those wines wound up being in my top 10. It seemed like almost every year. But again, not all the wines did I really I didn't think it was a great fit for every wine, but certainly as a tool, it was important. And I remember having a conversation with, like, Steve, it's like I did a whole cluster, and it's like, man, I just don't get it. It's we're not seeing the results. He's like, well, what percentage did you do? It's like, well, like 10 or 15%. It's like, well, you're not doing enough. You're not getting the good stuff, And it's like, okay, well, that seems more risky. And before I even went down this path, I would take the grapes, including the stems, and put them in my mouth and chew around on them. And I can tell you, if you've ever done that before, it's a pretty unpleasant experience. I mean, they taste horrible. They're bitter and astringent and just nasty. And I'm like, so I struggled with it for a number of years. It's like, why in the heck would I put anything into a fermenter that, tastes green and nasty like that, and run a risk of getting green and nasty stuff coming out? And it all sort of came to a head for me in 2011, again, after, this and other conversations that I had with folks doing whole cluster at significant percentages. So I decided to do 100% whole cluster. It's like, I'm just doing it. It was the 2011 vintage, arguably the absolute wrong year to choose to do whole cluster. But I was super charged up about it, and I was in the saddle, locked and loaded. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do it, man. And so did a fermenter's worth of it. And from the time those grapes came into the winery till probably this day, as I think there's probably a few bottles rattling around in the winery, that was one of my favorite wines. And it tracked completely different than any of the other 11s that we did. It tracked more like the subsequent vintage, which is 2012, a pretty highly touted year. And it just, everything about that wine was different, and it totally got my attention, and I kind of fell in love with the idea of it, and the wine. I just thought it was cool. And so whole cluster sort of arrived in our cellar that year, and it's been a part of what we're doing ever since. But I guess one of the things I respect and continue to be in awe of with whole cluster is that it's not linear. I mean, you can have wines that are 25% or 30% whole cluster that are more whole clustery than, say, 100% whole cluster. And it's about, how you're managing the fermentation, the cap management part of it, everything about it is a factor. And if you overwork them, you can easily, going back to that black pepper analogy that we had earlier, you can kind of manifest some of those, overly impactful, or you can get over influenced on the structure and the astringency coming from it. So, right. And that came to a head for me, I think it was probably in 2013 or 14. We have interns every year that come in and they do the majority of the punch downs, and we were doing 100% whole cluster fermenters. I think I had 4 of them that year. And the guys got in there and they went all caveman on the whole cluster, on 2 of the whole cluster lots, and in tasting them they were destroyed because they went after it too aggressively with a punch down tool, and you wind up abrading the stems, and the undesirable parts of whole cluster reside inside the stem, and what you want is more on the outside. So it's almost like those clusters, as they're fermenting, if you think about them as an analogy with a tea bag, it's kind of like that. So we're trying to, steep those clusters, if you will, in the slowly fermenting wine, and then you get a more elegant expression, which to me is what it's all about. It's easy to go too far, when folks ask or offer that they jump inside the fermenter and dance around and all that kind of stuff. It's like, you're braiding those stems, and we don't do any of that, honestly. Rarely do we even do a punch down for the whole cluster wines that we're doing because we're sort of trying to avoid over extracting.
Right, that makes sense.
And I find there's a wide range of manifestation of the whole cluster influence depending on how you're managing the cap. That's a big part of it. But the 100% whole cluster lots that we have, it takes between probably 4, sometimes upwards of 6 weeks for the alcoholic fermentation to complete. So, we're on the skins for probably the better part of at least 3 weeks. And then once we press off, a lot of that sugar is still inside of the berries. And so as that gets released, so it has a completely different fermentation dynamic relative to any other wine that we do. And again, I like that part of it because it really winds up tracking as a very different wine.
That is awesome. I was just soaking in all of that. Just like that's amazing.
So what do you think of the extrovert?
I love it. I mean, I love that, it's a 5-year-old Pinot, and it is completely full of life.
It's
on
a baby.
So many levels.
Well, it's a baby in our winery.
It is.
But yeah, it's I'm very happy that it's still very vibrant and fresh. I mean, it's very red fruited, which as we move into the tightrope next, we'll get into more of a darker fruited profile, which again is very achievable when you're utilizing a higher percentage of Yamhill Carlton fruit, as we do in our program. We're within that AVA, and my vineyard is located in Yamhill Carlton as well, Saffron Fields.
Very nice. Shall we dive into that one?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So same vintage, 2019. This is the tightrope. And for the Pinot Noirs too, we've changed the color scheme on the labels. That's another, try as we might, no matter what, alcohol is always involved with enjoying wine. So, having even a label that's a different color seems to be helpful in that pursuit.
Well, yeah, I think you were saying that, having the different colors, people are like, well, what did you enjoy? What did you have? And I don't know, it was kind of like, ugh. Well, what color was the label? It was this. Oh, okay, there we go.
It's hilarious. Sometimes when folks come in, it's like, oh, hey, I had your wine the other night, come to the winery. It's like, yeah, I had your wine, a month ago, and this location. And it's like, oh, okay, well, what was it? It's like, oh, it was Tendril. It's like, okay, well, that's a start. And then, yeah, chances are they don't remember the offering, but they remember the color of the label, and it's been helpful to back to deuce.
Oh.
So to me, there's kind of more of this high tone quality to it, and there's a bit of a more floral influence that I get from the whole cluster influence here. I think this is about 30% whole cluster from 2019, if memory serves. But also very much, whereas the extrovert encompasses a little broader swath with regards to the AVAs contributing. Here, this is 100% Yamhill Carlton. So, and extroverts, I think, always been that way. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I love this wine. I'm a big fan of the darker fruit. And I get, all of that dark fruit just immediately on the nose and all over, and it just kind of sends chills up and down my spine because I love that darker fruit.
Well, I'm in agreement with you there 100%. Also, this celebrates for me the superpower that whole cluster has. Again, with well executed whole cluster, it adds a lot of length and persistence on the finish. So, you were mentioning earlier with the Pretender, I think, the length on the palate. This is different because obviously it's coming from more of a structural place where it's the tannin profile in the stems, but it's very different than the skin and the seed tannin, which is also part of this wine, but having that contribution from the stems, again, when well executed, I think it just adds a lot of length and persistence to the finish, which again, I really like as, I guess qualifying for its own place in the lineup.
I completely agree. It is, yes, this is like one of my top ones that you have here.
Oh, thank you.
This is gorgeous. If I'm doing my math correct, you have 2 daughters. One is 13 and one is 19.
Actually, 20 and 14, but yeah.
I was a little off.
Very, very close. Yeah, the age,
yes.
You've got the age difference for sure.
I'm curious, we've talked about that chef quite a bit. Are you, as you're raising them, I assume that you're teaching them how to cook, and are you teaching them, how to cook without recipes and kind of following your own kind of their own nose?
Yeah, I mean, I don't cook as much as I used to. I mean, I still do cook. And my youngest daughter is, I think, a little bit more interested in that, which is cool. So she, Audrey's been a bit more interested in cooking. But I will say that ever since they were tiny, I've been, sticking things in their faces and having them smell and taste them, and really trying to develop that sense of both taste and smell. And they both have very good palates, and my wife Diane does as well. And that's definitely like something that they picked up on for sure. And yeah, I think they both have pretty good palates. Although I'll share a funny story. My oldest daughter, Madeline, I think she was probably, I don't know, 12 or 13, probably about Audrey's age. And we were, I was opening a wine. It was an older wine that I had made, and it was as old as she was. And I was like, "Hey, Maddie, you want to try this wine? I've got this wine that's 15 years old, 14 years old." And she's like, "Sure." And so I extracted the cork, and it was kind of crumbly, and so I had to get some of the pieces out or whatever. And but the wine was still fine, which is good. And so I poured the wine for her, and she started smelling it. She's like, "It's like, oh, well, this wine is corked." And I was like, "You know what corked means?" I was just like, "Oh my God." I'm like feeling like a proud papa. I was like, "Oh my God, I don't think I've ever had you try, wine." It's so like smelling the wine. It's like, and I didn't smell it. I wasn't picking it up. And it's like, "Well, what do you mean, Madeline?" And she's like, "Well, there's little bits of cork in it."
Oh my gosh.
Which it's like, okay. From the mouths of babes,
Right.
That was hilarious. And it was full of cork debris.
That's funny.
Or as she would call it, corked.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
How do they feel having their pictures on the Child's Play labels?
Good, although I will say I kind of messed up one of them. So the Blanc de Blanc sparkling that we do, the first iteration of that we called Bubbles, and so we did a label redesign, probably 3 or 4 years into it, realizing these are the original iteration of the labels with the original artworks here, but the labels were a little too playful, arguably, and so we kind of did a redesign. And so with the redesign, the artist, which would either be Maddie or Audrey, their name is on signed at the bottom, and I got the name wrong for the sparkling wine, and Maddie definitely picked up on that, and she wasn't too happy. And I still remember she graduated high school a couple of years ago, and so she did most of her pictures out in our vineyard, or a number of them at least. And she asked me to bring a bottle of the sparkling wine, so I brought it, and she crossed off her sister's name and wrote her own name on it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So and sadly, I printed 2 vintages worth of two vintages worth of the labels just to try and make it more cost effective, because we made 150 cases of it or something. So they lasted longer than I would have liked. So,
ouch.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Oh.
Joys of being a parent.
Exactly. I have a 15-year-old, so I get it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Boy or girl?
Girl.
Oh. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Girls are awesome.
Yes, they are. We're reaching a good little point.
Good.
Yeah. I'm very happy, very pleased. She will be a sophomore next year, and teaching her how to drive. And I have to tell you, I love it.
Oh, good. Well, it's pretty handy. Maddie's come in very handy at times to be a designated driver for us. She's not a big partier, so that's it's a good thing. And Audrey's sort of chomping at the bit to be able to drive.
Yeah, no, that is cool. What have you thought about a legacy or whatever that you want to leave them? Or
you mean the car from Subaru? Is that I've had one before. It's a pretty good car.
Yeah.
But of course I jest. I mean, honestly, I sort of, I don't want to say struggle, but it wasn't like a lot of things in my life. It wasn't like crystal clear to me that I wanted to do my own wine label when I first started. Actually, I would say I was in the opposite camp, where it's like I don't do my own label. It's like, that's lunacy. That's craziness. And then, after doing this for a number of years, working for other wineries and, a 10-year stint at Domaine Serene, it just became more apparent to me that it's something that I wanted. And so, my point here is that I went down this path as, I guess, more of a mindset or more of a goal to scratch an itch that I had, and to me, there's no greater challenge as a winemaker than to create something where nothing existed previously, and again, not to over dramatize what it is, but it's like, but I'd never done that before. It's like coming up with a concept and a label and, everything that goes into it, then trying to do the hard work to try and get some traction on the brand or now brands to make them successful. It's hard, and if I could go back in your time machine, if you can find it, I may have made it. I may make a different choice today. It's right. Like, because it's a difficult business. It's rewarding and it's wonderful, and I mean it's all kinds of things, but it's certainly challenging. But long-windedly, I chose to do this as a completion of me. So it's something that was very important to me to try and take on this challenge, if you will, and to ultimately create something that maybe has some value, that actually is additive in the whole category of wine in the world, where arguably it's an oversaturated category. It's like, but with that said, there's new brands that are born every day, and some of which that will be very successful, and some won't. And so there's risks associated in most things in life, and this is no different. With that said, I would never force anything on my kids. It's like I want them to be their best versions of themselves, and have the words been mumbled or uttered before as far as them in the wine business? Yeah, maybe in passing or as a contingency plan or something, which to me it's like, well, I don't know that that's the right way to get into it. So I just don't know. But also, I would say at this juncture in both my career, stage of life, overall experiences, the creationism part of it is, to me, is cool. It's like, even if it doesn't have any value, and when it's time to tap out, somebody else doesn't want to make it their forever, dream or whatever. It's like, I still think that it's been personally rewarding for me to have taken on this challenge. And so I guess what I'm saying is the juice is worth the squeeze here for sure. But I wouldn't like want to force that on anybody, Right. I mean, and I think it might be more difficult over time to be successful in this business as people's tastes and preferences are changing. We're in a really somewhat bizarre period right now where it almost there's some neo-prohibitionist vibes going on, which is like, what's that about? But again, I think it's kind of a temporary period or whatever. There's it's just changing. The landscape is changing. I think it will continue to do so. And so, yeah, maybe there'll be some interest. But I'm not holding my breath. And I would be surprised if they decided to go down that path. Maddie's in school to become an attorney or a lawyer, I should say, and Audrey, based on where she was at, she just graduated grade school, is going into high school this year. And so I think on her little bio, she said something about wanting to be some type of scientist. Her mom was in the chemistry department at Pacific for many, many years. So I think she gets some of that from her. So
very cool.
So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, no, that is awesome.
Why, is your daughter interested? No, just kidding.
No, she's all about animation, and she's big into ballet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to work the whole ballet scholarship and academic scholarship kind of.
Oh, she's going down a scholarship track.
I'm trying.
Oh, okay. Well, she needs to try.
Well, I'm planting a bunch of seeds is what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting.
Yes. We'll have some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And then we'll reveal what the wine is.
Sounds good.
Okay. Favorite artist to listen to during harvest?
It's an easy one for me, Steely Dan, So.
Okay. Your favorite indulgent food?
Probably pizza.
Okay.
I mean, that's indulgent to me.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah. If you could choose a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, man. I think time travel. I think we've just touched on it. That would be pretty good.
Yeah. That would be very nice.
Or I would say, if you could hone a superpower into, salesmanship, that would be
nice too.
Be pretty good too. So, I don't know what you'd call it, but that's why I struggle with it.
Your harvest notes, are they digital, handwritten, or all just up in your head?
Yeah, I would say it used to be more handwritten. I'm pretty old school, but definitely haven't been as regimented about it. So I rely upon, kind of my memory bank more than anything. I mean, it's one of those things that for me forces me to be more connected that way. So I kind of like that. I don't want to be so reliant upon actual notes that I'm taking. So I think, that's kind of where we're at. So
that's cool. That's cool. Last book you read? It could also be Audible or like a podcast or something of that nature.
Well, I'm in the midst of a self-help book, so I can't remember the title, but so that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. So nice. We can all improve. It's like it's a constant challenge, constant journey, and our challenges are coming at us, I would say, with greater rapidity.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. All right. Do you want to take another stab at the wine?
No, I think we should just unveil it. So.
Just unveil it?
Yeah, right. But I would. But if I had to guess, like the actual vintage of the wine, I mean, I would say this wine is at least 10 years old.
Okay. Well, it is a 2013 Saffron Fields from EIEI.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
So it's at least 10 years old?
At least 10 years old. Yes. No, I thought...
So Jay finally sold this one? That's good. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I just thought, the connection with Saffron Fields and, seeing another expression of it would be pretty neat.
Well, you can ask Jay how he got introduced to Saffron Fields.
All right. I will definitely have to...
He'll be very happy to tell you, I'm sure. But,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any questions or anything for me as we wrap up?
Yeah, nothing in particular. I would say that, at this juncture in the growing season for 2024, I'm pretty encouraged. Once we get through bloom, I think we'll know quite a bit more about how things are going to size up for the vintage, both literally and figuratively. So that'll be exciting. But I would say in contrast to 23. We've seen a bit more precipitation in the month of both May and June than we saw last year, so I think that's probably a good thing for us.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, what about anything that you'd want to ask me in addition, or?
No,
we're good.
Yeah, we went through everything.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I guess we stayed on track.
Yeah, we did great. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me on this flavorful voyage through the world of wine on the Weinnotes Podcast. I've been your host and guide, AJ Weinzettel, and it's been an absolute pleasure sharing these captivating stories with you. But alas, like the last sip of a fine vintage, our time together must end. But don't fret, my wine-loving friend. The cellar doors of the Weinnotes Podcast will always remain open, waiting for you to return and explore new conversations, stories, and musings from the captivating people behind the magical world of wine. Before you go, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and don't forget to leave a sparkling 5-star review to help spread the word. Until our glasses clink again, remember to savor life's moments and let the spirit of wine and camaraderie linger on your palate. Cheers, and as always, may your wine glass be full, your heart be light, and your journey be delightful.